Greetings, Internet! I'm here to talk about my thoughts on the trailer for The Lion King 2016 and the mix of reactions to it. The downside is that I'm not a regular YouTuber and currently have no plans to be, and since that means I have practically no basic idea of how much or how little copyrighted clips or still images I can include without subjecting my video to being flagged, and also seeing how I'm not a regular YouTuber, I'm reading off of a script here, and because I feel my wording is very important. Whenever I want to voice my own thoughts, I typically just post them on DeviantArt journals, but this is a special occasion. Because with this particular topic, there's a lot more to unpack than I'd ever be able to fit in a DeviantArt journal. In fact, my script on this topic already called for a week's worth of writing and rewriting and deconstructing of my own arguments to make it as solid as I could. I'm also doing this in video format because I think it's something that needs to be heard by as many people as possible. So I'm sharing this on an online platform that more people have access to. So make yourself a cup of coffee and feel free to just listen to me while attending to your daily affairs. Now, full disclosure, I'm not very excited about the upcoming Lion King remake, and I was irritated by the very prospect of it from the very first announcement of it. And after watching the trailer and seeing how it's comprised entirely of shots lifted from the animated classic, it does make me all the more fed up about this whole trend of remakes. I will admit that as a cat lover, one thing I was genuinely impressed by was how baby Simba was given the natural reflexes of a real-life newborn kitten. But it's not enough to sell me on the prospect. Yes, I say this with Lion King being the first animated film I ever watched, and as such it's one of my favorite movies in general. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here just to rant and rave over the rehash of all the complaints that the rest of the internet has spewed out at the whole Disney live-action remake craze, as well as the whole Hollywood remake craze in general. Jon Favreau and his team have already committed to making this movie, and it would not be right of me to attempt to disparage them out of making it. It simply would just be wrong to try and start any crusades. And that's what I'm here to talk about. Because seeing how, in this age of the internet, things can get more toxic than ever, where creators are so prone to getting fired with death threats and harassment from angry fans, like from Kelly Marie Tran finally getting getting to live a one-in-a-million dream of being a part of the Star Wars lore, to end up being harassed off of Twitter, to the mass shootings threat at Cal Arts after the announcement of the Thundercats reboot. I feel I need to add some rationality here. Since I am a content creator who still does listen to online media critiques, and as such have formed my own critical eye on technicals of art, I feel that I need to be able to speak up in a way that is fair to both sides. Because I know that there are people who hate the Lion King trailer on arrival, and people who are excited to see the movie. Those who are excited to see it are using strawman arguments against the detractors, claiming that they're just dumping on the concept of this being remade for the sake of dumping on it. As overgeneralized as that statement might be, though, I can't side with either extreme. I can concur that the worries and frustrations of the people who are experiencing are not unfounded, seeing as I myself am one of those people, but I'm not about to get behind those who want to throw stones either. Being a content creator means that it's only natural of me to look at the technicals through a critical lens. Because I also try to avoid thinking that I'm above common moviegoers or TV goers or what have you. I despise the situations when this sort of relationship between critics and creators erupts, because it doesn't solve anything and it just turns everyone into a monster. So I'm going to put forth my own say on the matter from the perspective of a content creator who seeks things from a technical and even business standpoint to an extent, and as a content consumer who will turn on the TV or pick up a book to enjoy myself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and address some points on the matter. First point I'd like to bring up is the matter of detractors regurgitating the classic, "This remake is pointless," and the defenders regurgitating the response of, "Can you name me one already existing Disney remake that actually needs to exist?" To answer that question, probably none of them need to exist per se. But given how Disney's been churning these out non-stop, right down to greenlighting a remake of Lilo & Stitch, a movie so recent that even 25-year-olds like myself can remember seeing the original on the big screen for the first time, keep in mind, it's just as easily to make a remake too soon as it is to make a sequel too late. The concept of remakes would normally just be a basic part of Hollywood that we have to live with, and the channel Counter Arguments made a great video a couple years back that discusses when and where remakes have their time and place. But at this rate, it's consuming the entire American film industry. Okay, not entirely. But it's becoming something like a parasite that we can't escape from, which ties into point number 2. Oh, there's nothing original out there anymore, and people responding with, there's plenty of original stuff out there at this time. Yes, there are original things out in the world, but my question is, for how much longer? Is it possible that the time will come when Hollywood's obsession with exploiting nostalgia properties gets to the point that they ignore any and all opportunities for something original? I'm not saying that it's certainly going to be the case, and I don't think it ever will be, but something to consider. Because I do feel that becoming obsessed with this sort of thing is like getting hooked on drugs. It will give you an instant gratification for the moment, but it will take its inevitable toll. Trends always pass through like a laxative. And if a company like Disney becomes too dependent on one type of trend to keep them afloat, it's going to overall harm them in the future. I also want to bring up the fact that one of the movie's selling points that even haters of the trailer said that they loved was the return of James Earl Jones. Never mind the supposed mindset that everyone is replaceable except for him. Look, I love James Earl Jones as much as everyone else, really. He's an absolutely wonderful actor, and I stand by that nobody could fill the role of Mufasa better than him. But, honestly, it all feels like a cynical coast on my nostalgia. Like they think that just getting James Earl Jones back to come and do his lines over is enough to win me over. Again, for some people, that is enough, and I won't say that they're wrong for wanting that. Don't let me be a killjoy to you. But for me, I'm afraid that isn't enough when I can just watch him in the original movie. It just feels like a regurgitation, and that's the only reason they hired him. Not specifically for what he could have brought to the table. It just feels like he's a tool in the marketing. Now, don't get me wrong. He might be all too enthusiastic to be summoned back, and I'm happy for him if that's the case. But from where I'm standing, it just feels like he's being used for corporate gain. Which leads me to point number 3. These live-action remakes are just cash grab sellouts, and the response being, basically every film is greenlit for money, what do you expect? Yes, I know that this is a business, and businesses need to be profitable. Saberspark recently made his own video where he discussed the trend of these remakes is basically one of many tentpoles to Disney's current success. But that doesn't mean that the business needs to be so superficial. The money shouldn't just be the be-all, end-all to all this film business, especially since it's an art-related business, and being an art-related business, it is the job of business managers to not only look at the big picture rather than focusing all attention on a zeitgeist trend, but also to actually give a crap of at least some of the artistic integrity and giving something audiences generally like in exchange for their theater tickets. That is what Walt founded his business on. He was a capitalist, but he did not form his legacy by playing it safe. He kept pushing the envelope to make progress and inspire future creators. If you are in a film business and you prioritize money and while disregarding all else, you're not even doing your job. Now, I'm no business manager, so I shouldn't try to make any claims that I can run Disney better than Bob Iger and everyone else. But to me, it just seems a little redundant to try and give Lion King a live-action recreation on the big screen, given how the original has the rare privilege of getting frequent re-releases on the big screen next to Snow White and Beauty and the Beast. Heck, it wasn't even that long ago since the animated classic was advertised for a 3D big screen re-release. It was, in fact, earlier just this very decade. If I wanted to see Lion King in live action, I'd just go see the Broadway version, which I have, twice, both times in London. If I wanted to see it filmed in live action, I'd either ask for A, the Broadway version to be filmed in this grand Cirque du Soleil style, or B, as a dialogue-free documentary that like it was originally intended to be. But, of course, that was also the original inception for Disney's 2000 hit film Dinosaur, and we all know the route that they ended up taking with that film. Speaking of which, point number 4, the whole debate over it being live action or not. It's meant to be photorealism, just roll with it, I hear defenders of the movie saying. Given how this movie is doing basically the same thing as Dinosaur with photorealistic animals over a real-life background, and how Dinosaur is considered part of Disney's animated canon, I personally do not consider this film live action, no matter how realistic you make it look. But I don't want that to turn into a topic that sparks a war like the one about Lion King supposedly being a ripoff of Kimba the White Lion. For me, it's going to take a lot more than pretty visuals for a good movie-going experience. For other people, that's all that they ask for when going to see something, and again, that's perfectly fine. It's just that as technology progresses, how well CGI ages over the years varies, which makes it all the more important for the rest of a film's attributes to be strong. I recently rewatched Dinosaur, and I will say that it is pretty amazing how well the visuals in that movie still hold up. Yes, I would dare say even better than the original Jurassic Park, but that doesn't mean that Dinosaur is the better movie overall. Now, personally, as an animation fan, I do take some issue with the implications that come with the mindset of every successful thing needs to be animated and made in live action. The idea that all animated properties can't remain in their original animated form does basically give off an insulting vibe of animation not being a good enough medium and that that live action is for older audiences. And in the region of the world where I live, where animation still gets snuffed time and again at the Oscars, as if the Oscars are really anything more than a joke anyways, and is still looked at as a kids' medium, in spite of all the efforts to prove otherwise, that is very disheartening and patronizing to hear how people will still dismiss the claim that animation is a art form, not a genre. When people complain about the Aladdin remake and say, how can you even imagine doing it without Robin Williams around? My answer would be basically the same way they would do Aladdin on Broadway. No, for me, the bigger issue with Robin Williams being gone is that his role as the genie in the original Aladdin is a landmark in animation history because he made voice acting and animation a respectable career that actors would no longer pick up just as a dead-end job. So yeah, in a way, that does undermine the significance of animation to our culture, especially coming from the company founded by the man who set out to push the envelope of animation to get it where it is today. But that doesn't mean I'm going to act like a sniveling crybaby and be dismissive of any live-action adaptation of something animated just because it's live action. I don't want to come across as the other extreme and give all those animation haters more reason to look down on it. And since bringing up iconic roles such as Robin Williams and James Earl Jones was important for me right here, that brings me to my fifth and probably longest part of the discussion.